Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 11th week of the school roundtable. Glad you joined us. Remember, money isn't the most important thing in life, but it is reasonably close to oxygen on the gotta have it scale. This is a weekly opportunity to have money-related conversations. It usually bleeds into other topics, though, as it will today. We hope you have some light bulb moments today. Last week, I loved my guest, Daniel from Pivot Point. We just had such a great conversation. The guy is full of so much wisdom. He's on the cutting edge of teaching and education and engagement. And it was a great session. We did record it. So hopefully, if you didn't join us last week, you should check it out. This week's guest will be Lina Heath of the Eveline Charles Companies from Canada. The theme will be to hell and back, because Lina has been to hell and back. You can't usually have somebody talk about things when they're in hell. You got to wait till they come back, which is what we're going to do today. We're also going to spend a little bit of time talking about perception. This will be a conversation that I'll lead, and perception in a couple key areas. This is inspired by the roundtable we did earlier today. So there's a couple of perception issues in the professional beauty industry, and we're going to address those head on today. So the reason we did this roundtable was really to create community for schools. Schools are small businesses too, most of them, not all of them. And certainly the opportunity to have weekly conversations and build community is why we're doing this. Qnity, which is the company that I'm from and lead, we are the curators, the host, and the primary sponsor for this. We love to help people earn great money, do what they love, and have quality of life. And take things that are complicated, overwhelming, and confusing and make them simple for a more direct path to prosperity, whatever that means for you and your school, as well as your students, of course. Much of what we do is we make sure that our education, tools, et cetera, really address the needs of the marketplace. It's got to be simple, visual, and actionable. Pivot Point is sponsors of these roundtables too. The Pivot Point team is amazing. We're thrilled to partner with Pivot Point with our new money course for students, financial success training, to help proactively address what we know are critical issues that relate to students and parents. We want to make sure that not only do they learn the craft at your schools, but they're also prepared to have the kind of prosperity that's necessary for them, then also is for you as schools. So certainly opportunity to become a money school. We just had a session on Monday where we did information session with a great turnout on that. And we'll also be having some soon. So anyway, thank you, Pivot Point, for co-offering this program for students. You can book a demo by going to qnityforschools.com. Also, Lightheart Sanders, CPAs. We had Jared on last week. Jared's probably with us this week too. Thank you for being sponsors of this. And I want to plug the study that they are working on to create benchmarks for schools. And Jarrett, or maybe with Aaron's help, we can put something in the chat. Jarrett is offering an opportunity. There's no promotion here. The guy is just trying to get good data. He is allowing non-clients to be part of this benchmark study. I feel so strongly that having this kind of information and data is really necessary. So I am encouraging you to reach out to Jared and be part of this benchmark study with him. Whether you're a client or not, Jared isn't going to, it's not an upsell opportunity. The guy just wants to have good data. So Jared, thank you for that. The 9-Grid is one of Qnity's visual thinking tools, the award-winning 9-Grid visual thinking tool. We actually won a National Graphic Design Award. I'm really proud about that if you haven't seen. Pardon my bragging, but hopefully you'll use the 9-Grid to find some light bulb moments today. You'll use the 9-Grid. Earlier today, we did our 56th roundtable for salons and spas. And just a few insights. We had a session with Danny Everson, who is from Colorado. She owns a couple salon spas out there. She's just going to open another one. And there's a couple takeaways that came out of it. And one of them is in some conversations with Danny in prepping, One of the things that I realized is something we promote at Qnity, and that is September being another new year. According to the Wall Street Journal, September is the real new year, more than back to school. People improve routines, consider career moves, join the gym. So this is really a vital time of year. It's time for planning, budgeting, renewal. 69% of respondents in the study believe small improvements in September are easier to achieve than New Year's resolutions. Now, let me tell you why this came up, because Danny, who's a client of ours, and we interface on certain things, and I've been part of several Zoom meetings with her over the last year. And when I was on with her on earlier this week, I noticed a completely different energy with Danny. And we talked about this earlier today. I'm going to give you a succinct explanation. And Danny has 3 kids. She's got a 19, 11, and I think she's got like a 7-year-old or something. And most of the times when I was talking to Danny, you could see there was a slight level of distraction with her, and always present and all that. But what I noticed Monday, I said, Danny, I'm noticing a slightly different energy. She said, well, Tom, they went back to school on Monday. And it really got me thinking, you know, in working with our clients over the last couple months, we've noticed a little bit more, preoccupation, and we've attributed much of it to what's going on related with COVID and the Delta variants and all that. But when you really boil it down, a lot of it has to do with people are busy. And I would love to see in the chat if any of you agree with this. So anyway, the point is that whether you're a parent or not, or whether regardless of your role, September becomes a second new year and a time for some amazing growth and renaissance and great projects. And a part of it just has to do with the back to school element and the freeing of energy. So let me know if anybody can relate with that. So I did want to share that with you as something that came out this morning. All right, now let's see what else. So we lean very heavily on a brain trust for these roundtables, and we have a very active brain trust. We are looking for contributors on these weekly roundtables for the school roundtable. So if you want to be a guest, if you know someone to be a guest, someone that needs to be heard, someone that has something to say, reach out and let us know. And we're going to continue to build on this. I'm the curator, I'm the host. I certainly unapologetically provide some commentary, which I will today, but this is really about you and our community. All right, so Lina, let's get you up on the screen here. How are you today, Lina?
Good morning, I feel great.
And that's right, it is morning up there in Canada. So you're in Edmonton?
Yes, I am.
Well, we had you on as a guest last week on the Salon Roundtable, and it was really powerful. And you really told your story, the most current story. And I had asked you, have you told anybody else this story? And you said no. And so last week was really you coming out. And I say coming out like, you know, but it really was an update from you, because we hadn't heard from you in a while. I haven't talked to you in a while. And so thank you for sharing your truth last week on the Salon Roundtable, and for you coming back this week, because I think your message is really important to share. So thank you.
Happy to share again today.
So the theme is to hell and back, and which means that you've been in hell. And, you know, pardon me for using such blunt terminology, but I think this group gets it. And it kind of went all the way back to like 2010, didn't it? So let's take a few chapters. There's a distinctive chapter like 2010 to maybe 2015 or 16. Let's go there first, okay?
Okay, so I mean, 2009, 2010 were our best years. And that's where we experienced the most amount of success for salon and spa multi-location operation. What happened is that from 2010 to 2014 is that we start to feel the crunch, the pressure that there was change coming due to more of a global recession point of view, and retail was changing. So the traffic in malls was changing because of online sales. But I mean, we persevered. And I would say during that time, it's when the going was getting tough and the tough was getting going. And we were refining our business practices. And I have to say, during that period of time, those 4 or 5 years, although business was tough, we maintained, and we actually only had a difference of 2% in our sales during that difficult time. But our business was a much better business. We had a much stronger business, coming into 2014. So I feel that we were a little lucky going into 2010, but 2014, we became a stronger company.
How many locations did you have back then?
We had 10 locations. So we had mostly in Alberta. We had several locations in Alberta, and then in the adjacent province, we had 3 locations.
So you had 10 locations, salon spa concept, and you have 1 today, right?
Right.
So you went from 10 to 1. All right. Let's fill in some. Yeah, let's fill in some gaps here. So then let's go out the next sort of definitive chapter that has some very clear milestones.
Absolutely. So going into 2015, it's when the provincial oil and gas recession started. It came fast and it came hard. So during that time, we started to try to evolve our business. We went from refining our business to what do we do next? Do we stay in malls? Do we look at a franchise business model? We start to negotiate a relationship with the Hudson Bay and Saks Fifth Avenue for us to move some of our stores within their business model. But the crunch, was suffocating. Year over year. The sales were dropping by 20, the traffic in the malls was dropping by 20%. And we were trying to climb out of it, having a lot of fixed expenses with our rent. Labor costs had increased from $10.50 to $15 within a few years with a new government that was supposed to save the province from the recession we were in. It was just insufferable. I know that there are other participants that have had, sleepless nights where they're having gut-wrenching moments and being forced to make decisions to save the health and the future of the company. And that's where we were at. We were just, it's not that we sat still. We didn't sit still, but just we couldn't evolve fast enough.
You were a company in distress and when you start to get that scale, when you have 10 locations with that kind of overhead and that kind of head count. So you use the word suffocating, suffering. So you're talking about internally, you as a person, as a leader, your state during that time.
I wasn't a healthy person. I absolutely wasn't. I was up all night, trying to crack the code. Like, what do we need to do next? What direction do we need to take? And it was just, there was so much uncertainty. We just didn't know what was coming from one week to another. So we tried a lot of things. And then, we kind of led into this next phase of.
Yeah, let's go there. The next chapter.
So we were just at a point where we were just forced to have to make critical decisions on what to do next. So we start to shut down the stores that weren't carrying themselves. They weren't profitable. We started shutting down some locations. And then we shut down our British Columbia locations. And then we were focusing on our Alberta locations. And then the Alberta stores that weren't making money, we were shutting them down as the leases were coming up. But the critical pivot that gave us clarity was COVID. So when COVID, was rampant and just starting here to hit North America, it was January, February. And what was happening is that the head offices for Hudson Bay and for Saks Fifth Avenue were in Toronto and New York, and they were making decisions that were affecting the rest of their stores across the country. So a decision was made that we had to shut down our salons in our province when no other salons were shut down. And I told them, if you shut me down, I will not reopen.
How many shut down during this chapter?
Because of that decision, we shut down 2 locations, our Hudson Bay and our Saks Fifth Avenue store, because all the other salons were open except us. So our customers were all going somewhere else. And then we had another location that was actually one of our better locations. We were trying to, our lease had expired, and we were trying to negotiate a shorter lease, not knowing what the future was in salon and spas and what that business model would look like coming out of COVID. And they wanted a longer lease. And in the end, I said, listen, it's not a short deal or a long deal. I'm not renewing. I'm not renewing until there's more certainty in what's happening in the salon spa environment and in retail.
let's get to the schools in just a minute, because the schools, obviously, this is a school roundtable, and there's certainly a huge element as it relates to schools we'll get to in a moment. But so this is it went from bad to worse. It went
It
from,
did. It
yeah,
did. It
yeah,
went from bad to worse until COVID. And then we shut down more locations. So just when we thought it couldn't get worse, it got worse for the salons and spas. But we had diversified over those years. We felt that if we hadn't diversified, although it's a tough go and I don't recommend it for everybody, but in our case, it did save our company. So what happened? Go ahead.
Yeah, let's go through that a little bit, because there's a whole nother business model that might not be, well, go there.
I'll go there. Okay, so our salons we were shutting them down one after really months apart from each other, and then COVID hit, and we have a business called EC Labs where we are product manufacturers for all personal care products, hair, skin, body, baby, any type of personal care products. And then COVID started, and we did $2 million of hand sanitizer sales in 4 months.
All right, so there's the back.
That's the trigger of the back.
Okay, we haven't even told the school part, because it even gets worse when we talk about the schools. But
Right.
The only reason you're here today, I would not have invited you if you were still in hell.
Right.
But that other business unit was the silver lining for the pandemic, is that you just crushed it as it related to some demand for, sanitation products. So,
Right.
all right, let's
we'll go to the academy, as you're guiding me there.
yeah, let's go to the whole school part of the business now.
So we were downtown. We had a large downtown campus, and then there was some trouble happening with the demographics that were growing. I mean, there's an increase in crime and homelessness, and the traffic in the center was down. So we want to move to West Edmonton Mall. It's our largest shopping center. It's the largest in North America, and we had struck a deal with them. The construction was supposed to be done, if you can imagine going through this difficult time, was supposed to be done in September, but the construction only completed mid-February
Of 2020.
2020.
Yep.
And then on March 18th, it was announced that morning that our school on-campus education would end immediately that day. And then we could not enroll any students until further notice. 0 student enrollment, because we couldn't enroll a student on a contract with an undefined delivery method of education. So with that, we had $35,000 of rent every single month.
Time out. Let me make sure I hear you right. You had $35,000 of rent every month, and you had no revenue and no landlord relief.
So there was some landlord relief, but
Okay.
it wasn't very good, because it was based on previous year sales, and because our September, which is our biggest intake period, to February, we were in a temporary space because the construction wasn't completed. Our year-over-year sales weren't as dramatic as necessary to qualify for most subsidies. We did get some subsidies from the government, but not from our landlord.
Okay, so now the school, keep going with the school.
Right. So we had brought in a manager from another city. The day she started was March 18th, and that was announced that day that we had to shut down the school. So she moved back home. She gave us notice, and she terminated her job. So now we don't have a manager. We're paying all this rent. We had to really focus our resources to providing as much education as we could to our students. The aesthetics program was suspended. The CAUSE students, we did as much theory as we could, but it was painful. It was clumsy. It was a totally compromised form of education. It wasn't good. And we thought, you know what, that was so bad. We need to learn from this and never be caught with our pants down again. We can never be this vulnerable again.
Vulnerable. And, I've known you for many years, and many other people have known you for many years. And, there's a lot of pride in your brand, a lot of pride from Eveline Charles, who's the founder and your business partner. Your president, she's on her way out, obviously still involved in, but it's really, you're the leader here. So you weren't having fun anymore. And here you have a lot of pride, a very entrepreneurial company, top of your game. I mean, I remember 10 locations. I mean, big deal. And how'd you handle that emotionally?
I mean, at least Eveline and I, we had each other. So we do have a core group that had been with us through good times and difficult times that stood by us. That really did help. We are tough broads. I don't know, like we are resilient. Failure was just not an option. Like we
No,
had
one
to
second.
figure this out.
There's our light bulb moment. We are
Yeah,
tough broads.
we're tough. People think you're in the beauty industry and we comb each other's hair and we hold hands, but like we're tough, and we negotiated everywhere that we could. We had to really reinvent our company, and I think how we survived is that Eveline and in ourselves, we recognize that we do have a very strong entrepreneurial spirit, and it was just like, we need to figure this out. What's next? Like, how can this be a launching opportunity for the next chapter? And we probably would have gone to the point that we're at over more years, but because of the events, the pandemic, the recession, everything happening at the same time, it was a catalyst for us to make hard decisions and to make a plan for us to get to this next chapter of our story.
I've worked with companies in distress for many years. I've been involved in turnaround projects, et cetera. What really strikes me about the situation for you and Eveline and your team is how protracted, how long it was. This wasn't just like a 12 months, 6 months, 18-month. This was like a 10-year, gradual and then crazy distress. So it's certainly going to test your resilience. And I think that's part of the message for everybody on this call today is that times are tough. And when you put it in perspective, this is a ton of resilience and a ton of emotional strength and extremely draining. So I'm glad to see that you're here with us today and some of the changes. Let's talk about the schools for a moment here and what what you've done different. And let's talk about that.
There's two key things that we developed through this difficult time. One is we were shut down in the spring of 2020, and we weren't able to get into high schools. So through the summer, we thought, how are we going to hit it? How will we get through the doors of high schools to be able to connect directly with students? And we developed a virtual tour platform. And the key, the key factors are we showcase the facility. We have videos of every program. We have videos and testimonials from our staff and our students about their experience and what new enrolled students can anticipate if they were to join the Eveline Charles Academy. We gave a very clear picture of what it would be like to join our school. And we did live demos through technology. So we did a barbering class, we did makeup classes, we did acrylic nail classes, all online. So the students could have this interactive experience and not just a watch and learn where all of their education was just passive listening. This was an engaging platform. And we did get into high schools. And this is going to be something that we use now to reach schools that we can't visit on a regular basis geographically.
Is the virtual tour on your website?
There is a virtual tour on our website. You can go take a look at that version. The version shows the facilities, it shows all the videos, it describes our programs, but it does not include the demos because the demos are live.
So what would be the school website where they'd see like the virtual tour?
It's ecacademy.com.
ecacademy.com. Okay, so if someone wants to kind of check that out. So what else?
It's on the first page. It's on the first page.
Excellent. I should have watched it. I didn't see that. I'll check it out after the call. What else have you done in the schools then to rebound? The second thing.
The other part of the rebound was that that first time we were closed, the education, we just couldn't deliver proper education to our students. We just had limited resources. We hadn't explored what was available for tools for really working closely with our students. And we developed another platform for our virtual campus. And this platform, what's similar to Zoom is that we can speak to each other as we're doing now in a conversation. But what's very different is that the students then can break out into their individual rooms where the instructor can bounce between the rooms and give feedback on the work that they're doing. The students also can wear GoPros and they can have increased resolution. You can imagine if they're doing nail work or eyelashes, or if they're doing, hair extensions, is that we can zoom right into the student view. And then as a viewer, you can increase the resolution again. So when we were closed the second time, the following spring, we literally flicked a switch and everything was live. And as an administrator, I could see the faces of every single student in our student body and see them in their homes and receiving education from our instructors. We had little kits that they could take for their modules. We didn't miss a beat. We did not miss a beat. And what we took from that is that we can now teach other part-time programs solely online and be very different from anything else that's available for online education.
I'm really interested if there's any thoughts in the chat here, any comments, validation, questions, whatever. Would love to hear from somebody. I think this is an amazing story. And, we went through some of this last week, but we're going a little bit deeper into it this week. I'm struck by we've already talked about this a couple of times. I don't want to belabor it, but I'm struck by the level of distress and you telling the story about that. And they said GoPro's brilliant. They love that idea, by the way. And I think it's a lesson for everybody. It's a lesson for everybody to use the word tough broads, that you and Eveline, those are the words you used. Being tough, the school business is tough today. There's a lot of issues that still remain. So anything else that you have as it relates to emotional strength or resilience, because financial success requires you got to be on your game physically, emotionally, and all of that as a leader.
Well, you can't be in business for 47 years without having to go through some cycles of reinvention. If I think back now, as a leader for our company, during the good times, I learned how to refine what we do. So we got better at the business we were in. But what I learned over the past 5 years, especially, but certainly starting, back even earlier than that, I learned so much more during the difficult times. And coming out of this, I am a better business person. I never would have learned what I've learned without living through it. You can't read a book. You kind of have to go through these experiences and learn from those, learn those lessons. And part of the lesson learned is the confidence that you get coming out of it. There's nothing else that will give you that level of confidence to go through a tough time, figuring it out and climbing out as a new company with a strong future ahead. I mean, I think this, although it was difficult, I think it's going to be an asset for our company moving forward.
Yeah, the theme of hell and back is appropriate. I imagine the image of the phoenix rising from the ashes. Is that sort of what it feels like for you then?
Yeah, I guess it does. It's like and to be honest, it's like now that we're back in business, we're having fun again. We're a much more creative company. When you're under a lot of stress, that you're kind of forcing creativity, and your mind isn't free to be as creative as you'd like to be. You just the weight is so heavy. But now that we're coming out again, I mean, it's like, there's so many other doors that are opening for us because our mind is reopened again.
You mentioned the word creativity, and Erin, would you please type this in the chat? And she probably knows what I'm going to say. There is a lesson that I have learned in working with creative enterprises for almost, is it 30 years, or I don't even want to say how many years. It's at least 3 decades, maybe more. Okay. And here it is. And everybody should write this one down. You should write this one down too. Creativity thrives with constraints. Creativity thrives with constraints. When you have a constraint, it forces creativity. Advertising executives will tell you that their worst projects is when they have no constraint. They don't have a budget, they don't have a timeline, they don't have parameters. So enforcing, Erin, type in the chat, because I believe that comes from, we got it, that's not an original quote. So Erin, if you could type in the chat who the source is. but it's a really great lesson. And it's Scott Belsky. That's right. Scott Belsky formed a company called Behance. He also wrote a book, The Messy Middle. I love the book. It's recommended. It's one of my favorite books. The Messy Middle is really about, in enterprises, most people talk about the beginning and they talk about this dramatic success, but all the messiness in the middle is really where it all happens. It's a yellow book. I love the book. I love Scott Belsky. Anyway, I'm going on a little bit here, but I really wanted to piggyback on your comment about creativity. The pandemic has been full of so many darn silver linings and creativity. It's amazing, you know. We wouldn't have created the money course without the pandemic, unfortunately, you know. So a ton of good. And I guess I'm maybe an unapologetic optimist, but anyway, I digress here because this is really my interview of you. Do you have any final words for your community here today?
I guess the final words would be is that if you have the stamina and if you want to persevere and have strength for your company to have a future, is to not be afraid to bet on yourself to do it again. I mean, every entrepreneur bet on themselves when they start a business, but then they may go through some difficult times, and you just have to, bet on yourself again. Bear yourself in the work until you figure out this next vision for your company, but there's always going to be another door open.
That's a really good summation and conclusion. Let's award you. Now you get your second $1 million light bulb as a member of the Brain Trust. Let's everybody give Lina a rousing round of virtual applause here. Lina, you told the story the first time last week. You told it again this week, and it becomes easier for you to tell a story, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it does. But I look forward to, if I run into any participant here on the call today, I'd love to continue the conversation. I'm sure other attendees today have similar stories.
All right, Lina, thanks so much. All right, stick around, join us for the rest of the call here. And I'm going to share some other things here with all of you. And one other thing is, as it relates to the stamina and what have you, don't forget to get your protein. That's what my wife would say. And I'm being serious. Health is a huge component to this. And when you're in distress and you're dealing with volatility and all of that kind of stuff, health has a greater, health is your superpower. I'm being in jest partially here, but get your protein, take good care of yourself, and it's going to give you the resilience you need. All right, so I've got more to share with you. I've got some insights from you that have been marinating in me this week that I think are relevant, but past recordings of these should be on the YouTube channel. And so check it out. We are on next week, but we're not done yet today. Perception is something that I want to spend some time going through with you as a community here. And perception is really sort of escalating as a word that's resonating with me as a member of the professional beauty industry. And there's several different dots that have connected, or several different loose elements then when connected together leads me to this topic. Specifically, perception as it relates, there's two areas of perception that I want to be very specific about, and I talked about it this morning. One area of perception relates with the professional beauty industry overall, and the perception of the industry in the general public as it relates to the opportunity as a first choice career. There's challenges. And part of the challenges relate with the fact that when people research things such as average earnings for a hairstylist or barber or esthetician, whatever, is it shows up as being very low. And part of the reason is because of the measurements that are being used. And this is really plaguing enrollment in schools. It's also plaguing what happens after school. And I'm very happy to be part of a group. These are images on perception, by the way. All right. So there's a group, and I can't really speak to this in great detail, but there's a group that has been formed, and it's an industry think tank, and it consists of multiple different associations from salons, from schools, from distribution. It's all pro beauty and wellness. And I'm fortunate to be on a group that's really looking at perception industries in the beauty industry right now. So this is the first perception issue. And one of the things that we need is we need better data. And I got to give credit to several individuals that are part of this organization, including a gentleman by the name of Steve Reese, who really is helping to champion to make sure we have good research so we properly tell the story. Part of the story is related with earnings is it looks at the entire landscape of anybody performing pro beauty services. But when you segment off, and we look at a segment of the professional beauty industry, these are career professionals, and there's certain designations to really identify in surveys, are you a career professional? Deals with how much time you spend in it. So when we look at career professionals in pro beauty, the metrics are outstanding. As stylists and other members of pro beauty, nail techs, a massage esthetician, barbers, etc., in terms of comparability between family, friends, and others. And career professionals rate earnings very differently. Many of them say they make more money than other, family, friends, etc. They also report greater job satisfaction. They also report better quality of life. The metrics are outstanding. We need to tell that story a little bit more as an industry. So I'm on one of these subcommittees, and there's a bunch of organizations, and there's going to be formal research, and I can't share very much about this because we want to do this in a proper form, but I'm giving you a little bit of a tease here, that these studies has really revealed all sorts of different things as it relates to career professionals versus non-career professionals. They're satisfied. So there's some really good data that's going to come out that's going to help us collectively as an industry better market the opportunity and to eliminate this gap between myth and reality. So I'm super excited about this, and I would love to hear anything in the chat as it relates to this idea of perception. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What are your thoughts? So that's perception number one. Perception number two really relates more to once students get in the workforce and their method of becoming a worker, whether they become what we refer to as an entrepreneur, which means they have a business within a business, they're working at an employee-based salon, whether they become a solopreneur, which is someone that works as a business of one, whether it's in a suite, renting space, so solopreneur. And the third way to enter the workforce is to be more of an entrepreneur, which is someone that is like a solopreneur, but also has staff and starts to build a business. So this whole perception issue is really, really being felt by employers. I am hearing it loud and clear. And in the last few days, I've had conversations, including with an owner who has had just incredible success for multiple decades, very innovative. They take care of their team, great education. They take away all the hassle. And he's starting to feel people leaving his business to go independent. And he came to me and we talked about this. And his concern was not just what it did to his business, but he was genuinely concerned about members of his team, because he really felt that they didn't have all the information. And there was certain myths, and there's some very loud voices out there right now that really paint not a full picture on what it means to go independent. And this is employers very much are fighting for talent today. And they're also having more attrition than they realize. And so part of what we're doing in this money course and some of the education is addressing myth versus truth and really going through what is entrepreneurship, what's an entrepreneur, what's a solopreneur, and what's an entrepreneur. And just pointing out the pros and cons, just the facts. That this is not about saying solopreneurship is not a vital and proper way for someone to be in the interface in the workforce. It's more about making sure they have the right information so they're not surprised. Taxation changes, Self-employment tax comes into the thick of things. You now have to file a business tax return. You have to wear all these different hats as it relates to marketing. You're doing your own marketing, doing your, finding your own education. What this gentleman that I spoke with, the employer that was really struggling with his staff and them not really having all the information, is that he said, we take the grind away. As an employer, we take the grind away. We do the marketing. We do deal with client complaints. We do deal with sanitation. We do all of these different things. So anyway, it's a big perception opportunity to make sure that students and those entering the workforce and those in the workforce really truly understand the difference of these based upon facts and doing some math. So, and then, I love personally entrepreneurship. I've worked with entrepreneurs and as an advisor for, all right, it's 40 years, 41 years. Okay. And I have worked with entrepreneurs and seen them in good times and bad. The reality is most entrepreneurs are miserable, and there's something called entrepreneur poverty, where there's an inability to really detach from the business. In many cases, someone will be a great stylist or barber or massage therapist, esthetician, and they'll go off on their own. They're going to open up a business. And what they do is they make less money and have more time and greater hassle. So anyway, I want to be clear that our job is to educate and inform. And this might sound a little bit like a rant, but I do believe that we have some perception industries and perception issues in the industry. Some are more global and some are more specific. So, and then one of the other things that we address is certain traps. And one trap is we call the I just wanna trap. And the I just wanna trap is I just wanna do hair. I just wanna do nails. I just wanna be a personal trainer. I just wanna do my craft. I don't wanna do all that other stuff. And the reality is though, in order to be prosperous today, it's not enough just to do your craft, which is one of the reasons we did this money course, because we want to make sure that people are great at their craft and they're great at actually making the kind of living that they can make, and they make enough money to pay their student loans, and they're able to have good jobs because there's a lot of really good jobs out there. So anyway, one of the things that we try to find is money stories. And our guests usually bring a money story. Now, Lina's story today was not entirely a money story, but certainly, the things that keep people up at night are money and staff. And so anyway, we hope to hear your money story someday. I am going to just, as we close here, I'm going to see who's on the call. And then I've got a few other insights for you. So just real quick here. So who do we have today? Londa, thanks for joining us. Alcott, great to see you on here. Andrea, and you're on here again. You were on this morning. You can't get enough of us. Cheryl, Christine, Sissy, Diane, Eleni, Jared. Hi, Jared. Don't forget, guys, take advantage of Jared's benchmarking project. Jessica, hello. Hi, Jill. Hi, Julie. Hi, Chris. Lori and Lisa, Mark, Matt, Melanie, Michael. Hey, Michael, how are things in Seattle? Roberto up in Canada. I'm sure you enjoyed having a Canadian on here. Roxanne, New Mexico. Hello, Sabina, Shonda, Skylar, Sue. Sue, you were on our call earlier this week. Thanks for joining us. And Susan. So, okay, I have just a couple things here for you. If you missed our info session that Aaron, my partner, and I did this week, we'll be doing one of these again. We also have an opportunity to do demos. So we hope you'll become a money school and you'll make the kind of education that we feel is necessary to set future professionals up for success. You can go to qnityforschools.com. You can book a demo. We'd love to do a demo with you. And closing thoughts, gosh, I'm really inspired to hear stories like I heard from Lina. And I love when people tell their truth, because all progress starts when you tell the truth. Thanks, guys. We hope you enjoyed it today. We will see you next week. And Lina, once again, thank you. And this is the end of the call. Bye now.